doing irrational things, worshipping idols, something that doesn't make sense. And Ibrahim alayhi salam recognized this, and he used the intelligence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him to oppose them. And he didn't do it in a way that was, you know, abrupt, or in a way that was, but even though he was belittled and the consequences of his actions were humiliation in the eyes of the people, he was actually honored and elevated. Because we know that, as Sister Zainab was mentioning, that a lot of them suffered torture from their own family members, and Ibrahim alayhi salam was one of these people. His own father prepared his death. He prepared for the fire to be kindled for him. And when Ibrahim alayhi salam was going through these moments, they're beautiful moments, because we start to recognize the type of trust that he had in Allah. And this firm belief, he's using his energy, he's using his youth, he's using his abilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him in his path. And the consequences of this, or the positive consequences of this, was that he was elevated. He had the title of Khalilullah, the friend of Allah. That's a big deal. And also he had the best man to ever walk this earth, the Prophet ﷺ, to be of his descendants. And subhanAllah, that's just one thing that really hits me every time.
So incredible examples. I'm definitely feeling a lot more inspired. And of course we know that the rewards are so many for practicing from an early age. You mentioned the famous hadith there, take advantage of 5 before 5. What are some of the rewards, Sister Ayan?
Oh my goodness, subhanAllah.
Where do you start, right?
Yeah, I know. And then my young sister here just totally stole my thunder, because I was going to talk about Ibrahim alayhi salam as well. But yeah, there is the hadith of 5 before 5, which obviously is your youth before your old age. But there's also a hadith I found that says, there are 7 whom Allah will shade in His shade on the Day of Judgment, where there is no shade except His. A just ruler, a youth who grew up in the worship of Allah, and then it goes down to state, you know, other people who, you know, will be granted His shade. And for me, it just shows the importance of, you know, being able to give young people the guidance that they need, so that they're making the right decisions and that they stay on the right course, which is to follow the deen. And what we need to do in order for that to happen is to give them a really good foundation, because as you've mentioned, you know, when they get to that teenage age, they want to make their own decisions, they want to do things for themselves, and it's no use for us to kind of say, no, do this, don't do that sort of thing. It's not going to work. And it comes down to how we raise them as well. We can't expect them to fulfill their deen in their youth if we haven't given them that foundation from the beginning. And subhanAllah, just like you said, the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, one of the things that I found really, really amazing about his story is the way he questioned everything, the way he looked at nature. You know, he looked at the trees, he looked at the sun and the moon, and he was contemplating, you know, who is the creator, what is the creator, you know, why all of these things. And the fact that he decided that the moon can't be God because night turns into day, and then he thought, well, maybe sun is God, but then no, the sun, you know, goes away and it goes into night. And the fact that, you know, this is coming from him during his youth, he's thinking about all of those things. Young people are very, very capable of thinking, you know, of highly intelligent things that we wouldn't normally think about, and relating it to life.
Absolutely.
You get that even with 5-year-old children, subhanAllah, who ask you questions, you'll think, God, I'd never thought of that.
That's a period where everything's, but why?
Yeah,
but why?
It's amazing. And it's just, you know, we've got to cultivate that curiosity. We've got to allow them to want to explore. We've got to give them the tools to decide between the right and the wrong.
I think a lot of it is also how we perceive ourselves. And, you know, I found a really interesting quote from Imam al-Ghazali, who says, don't elevate or exonerate yourself. If you see a young person, say, this is a young person, he's had less time to sin, therefore he's surely better than me. And if you see someone who's older than you, say, this person has been worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for longer, so undoubtedly he's better than me. So it's always about seeing yourself in that position where if you look at a young person, don't necessarily think, oh, because they're younger, you know, they don't know, they're naive, they don't understand things. Or if you see an older person, think, you know, they're set in their way. How you perceive yourself, and I thought that was a really interesting way to look at things. Sister Sari, let's come back to you, because of course we know there are challenges that young people face. What are some of these challenges that people might face when they start to practice, and some of the solutions as well?
I think a lot of the time when someone starts to take the path like to go in the way of Allah, when someone decides to divert their focus on Allah, definitely a lot of challenges come in their way. And one of those challenges that I personally struggled with is constantly getting reminded of your past, because it's usually difficult for us to completely change the type of environment. Exactly, to cut off and to completely change the type of environment that we're in. And so I think it's really necessary to believe that once you have repented and you've moved on, to trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forgiven you, and to trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you more time so you can just go ahead, go straight ahead, to aim high and to carry on. Because when we dwell on these things, when we think about these things too long, we become weak. And this is, as we know, it's also a trap of shaitan. He wants us to despair. He wants us to believe that we're not good enough. He wants us to believe that we're too young to ever do anything. We're too, like, we don't have enough experience, or these kind of excuses that come in our way. So I definitely think that to just have that conviction that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on your side, and He's forgiven you and He's given you opportunities and is opening doors for you.
Alhamdulillah. Sister Zainab, some of the challenges, that it's, you know, definitely what Sister Sarah mentioned, that's a big issue, isn't it?
Absolutely, I think that's actually a really amazing point, just how shaitan gets into the heads of people and even ourselves in order to, you know, stop us from doing something that's good. But the other thing I was thinking about that actually really affected me, and something I had to overcome, is this obsession or this feeling of caring too much about the people around you. I think once you hit that certain age, especially kind of teenage years, or even as you get older, you're becoming more and more aware of the people around you, and especially at that period, at that really essential time, it's what do my friends think of me? Do I have enough friends? How do I look? Even strangers, what do strangers think of me? What I'm saying, what I'm doing? There's this like obsession about these things, and that is something that can really affect people. I know it really affected me. That, you know, that need to have to feel popular. It comes from a need to feel secure, isn't it? So, and then basically not having those things then can lead us to having that low self-esteem and low confidence and things like that, and can lead to a lot of misery, like the article we discussed earlier on. So for me, in order to get around that, first of all, it was all about Sahaba stories. That's all I knew. And they became, the more I read about them, the more I just thought, you know what, when I compare the two different, you know, I can either follow these guys or I can follow these guys. And these guys, the Sahaba, they were amazing. They were so ambitious, they were so autonomous, like they didn't let anyone tell them what to do. They were just focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they had just the most awesome kind of character and stuff. And I just thought, you know what, they're far and away the better ones, yeah, that I want to be like. You know, for example, I was talking about Al-Zubair earlier on. He wasn't thinking about, oh, what do they think about me? Do the girls like me? Oh, well, what's going to happen? You know, is this fun or whatever? He was just like, you know what, Jannah's the place, and I don't care about anything else.
And made that his focus.
And also choosing, sometimes with friends, there is a substitution that goes on, and that's fine. Make dua. The number of people that I know have made dua for a better, you know, set of friends, or a set of friends that help them to go to Allah, bring them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah ta'ala has given it to them, and they're just, you know, full of, you know,
I mean,
gratitude for that.
Finally, just to kind of round off this discussion, of course, we talk about some of the challenges that young people face, but what can we as an ummah do to help them? Sarah, let's come to you.
I definitely think that, you know, we should take an action plan from the life of the Prophet ﷺ. Obviously, like, he's the best example, and he has solutions for every problem. And so I think that taking an example of the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, we know how compassionate he was towards the youth. He know that he had many of the young Sahabas that he cared about and that he elevated, and that he gave them opportunities. And one in particular was of Usama bin Zayd radiallahu anhu. He was a 17-year-old boy, and this was in the final stages of the Prophet ﷺ's life, and there was quite a lot of conflict, there was quite a lot of, you know, disruption amongst the Muslims, and the Prophet ﷺ actually appointed him as a leader at a time where Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was present, at a time where Umar radiallahu anhu was present. The Prophet ﷺ chose a 17-year-old boy with no experience, to be the leader of the Muslims at that time. And I think that, you know, that's something that us as an ummah should really take an example from, because, you know, it lowers the self-esteem of the youth to say, oh, you're too young, you know, you don't have enough experience, you're not good enough, basically. And I think that we should give the youth a platform and should give them a chance.
And give them some responsibility.
Definitely.
Oh, interesting to hear you say that. Sister Yan, what advice would you give to the ummah?
I would say be friends with the youth. You know, it might be hard because we can't relate to a lot of the things that they're going through, because, you know, every generation is different, they grow up differently, but definitely be their friend, because the last thing they need is someone nagging them and lecturing them, because as soon as you start doing that, they just zone out, they don't listen, absolutely. Or they just, you know, roll their eyes and, oh, here we go again, sort of thing. They don't take in what you have to say, even though, you know, your intentions are there to guide them and tell them what's right, but sometimes you've got to talk to them like you talk to any other adult. Give them that respect, you know? If you want them to listen to you, you've got to give them that respect. You've got to treat them as young adults, because at the end of the day, they don't want to be belittled, because the moment you belittle them, that's it. They lose any respect that they've had for you as well. And yes, so basically, just be their friend. Let's all be friends. You know?
Oh, what a nice way to look at it. Alhamdulillah. You know, actually, you know, I'm going to try and take on board some of this advice, because, you know, I've got a younger brother who's a teenager. He's turning 17. And, you know, some of the discussions I've had with him, often I feel like, you know, this is my point of view. Why aren't you seeing it from my point of view? But then I think to myself, actually, why am I not seeing it from his point of view? He's obviously coming at it from a different angle. And it can be really frustrating, I can imagine, for him having that conversation with me. But again, we're both kind of looking at each other like, where are you coming from with this? So definitely, I think it's about just sitting down and having that open discussion with them and trying to understand where they're coming from on different issues, because there's a lot of problems that they face that we perhaps don't even know about. You know, the challenges that they face on a daily basis when they go to school, when they go to college, or whatever else it is. It's definitely a difficult time for any young person. Sister Zainab, what advice would you give?
I really believe in cutting people slack, you know, especially if you're that young. I think back and I go, you know what, I never really grew up mentally, because I just think in this society we've kind of mollycoddled a bit, and we don't really, you know, it's not like, you know, the kind of lives that maybe people would have in the past kind of thing. So I really think I didn't have like an adult's mentality until I hit like 26 even, yeah, subhanAllah. So have patience with the youth. You know, that it's kind of like their job to mess up, not deliberately, but that's the thing with life. You're just figuring stuff out. So cut them some slack and just kind of be nice. And this whole thing of shouting at people or condemning them when you see them, you know, when we may see them on the streets and things like that, it's just that's not the way. The harshness does not endear anyone to what you're saying. So be kind and to appeal to their minds and just cut some slack.
Jazakallah khair for that advice. You know, actually, when I was looking into this, I found a really amazing quote by Imam Sahib Webb, who's an imam in Boston in the US, and he said, "We understand as imams that young people are going through difficulty, and our message to you is keep struggling. We support you. You're going to make mistakes, and if you make mistakes, we'll be there for you. We're not here to indict you, but to invite you and to tell you that we're proud of you. And indeed, the painting which lies before this community, this empty canvas, will be painted by the hands of the youth." And I thought that's such an amazing way to put it. You know, we're here for you, we're supporting you, and inshallah, you know, we're kind of, we're proud of you. I thought that was a really lovely way to end that discussion. Jazakallah khair, sisters. Well, our youth are between two worlds and two visions of life, and it's our job as the older generation to focus our youth on their correct Islamic identity. We need to ensure the vision they have for life imitates that of the young Sahabas who were leaders in many aspects of life, while hastening to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all aspects. To neglect this responsibility means the prevalent culture of celebrity lifestyles and self-worth related to wealth will become what they love and aim for in life. So in our own actions and what we encourage, we need to teach our youth the lives of the Sahaba so that it becomes as familiar with us as much as the lives of the celebrities that we see in the media. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran in Surah Al-An'am, verse 162, "Say, my life, my death, and my acts of worship are all for the Lord of mankind." Well, a really interesting discussion there from the sisters, but what do you think about this issue? We'd love to hear from you and your comments. You can email us womensam@islamchannel.tv or contact our Facebook page or tweet us @IslamChannel #WomensAM. We're off to another break now. Stay tuned. We'll be back with our last segment where we'll be discussing a very difficult dilemma. Stay tuned. We'll see you then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
For more information, visit us online or give us a call.
Ticket to Jannah presents the first Islamic conference of the year, Jannatul Firdaus, a full-day conference on Saturday the 25th of January with renowned speakers from across the globe, including Shuyukh Haytham al-Haddad, Abdurrahim McCarthy, Ala al-Sayyid, Zahir Mahmoud, and Imam Wasim Kemsa, as well as reciting the Quran. Be part of this environment full of inspiration and iman. Be part of this journey from reviving the heart. Be part of something bigger. Book your tickets now, www.tickettojannah.com.
The wait is over. Stakeout, the original halal steakhouse, is opening soon at 52 Wellington Street, Luton. Don't just go out, stake out.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back, sisters. You're watching Women's AM with myself, Hassana, and on the panel today we have Sister Zainab, Sister Ayan, and our special guest today, Sister Sarah. Well, it's time for our next segment now, so let's go straight to Daily Dilemmas. In this segment, the sisters tackle a dilemma related to everyday life. So today's dilemma is from a sister who says, I've started to learn more about the deen and I want to practice more. I'm worried because my friends think I've changed and we aren't seeing eye to eye at the moment. What should I do? Sarah, I'm going to come to you first. It's definitely a dilemma that a lot of young people face, and we mentioned some of the other challenges that they face as well before. But this is, I think it's quite a big one, isn't it?
Definitely. I think this period of isolation that happens after you start practicing is kind of necessary, because, you know, like the sister said, you're not really the same as your friends anymore, because you start to see things differently than they do. And you know, when this happens, it's kind of, when you look back, you see it as a blessing more than anything, even though at the time it feels really painful and it feels as though this is the worst thing that's ever happened to you in your life. It's actually something that you're going to be thankful for later, because during this time you start to find companionship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You start to find comfort in speaking to Him, and you turn to Him, yeah, before you turn to anyone else. And this feeling of contentment and solace is one that's priceless, and that you're really going to appreciate it sooner, because for the rest of your life, for the rest of your life, you know that whenever you face any difficulty, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there and He's listening. And so this is, like I said, it's more than a blessing than anything else.
I remember we were having this discussion earlier, actually, and I was telling you, this is something I experienced from my own personal life when I started practicing. And you're absolutely right. What happens is that you feel really, really alone, and you start to place your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it almost feels like He's taking those people out of your life so that you're able to appreciate what you do have in it, and you're able to kind of focus your energies and attention to relying on Him and not on anyone else. Because, you know, the moment that you start to change or things are a bit different, some friends just start to melt away and you don't see them anymore, and it really puts things into perspective. So I think, you know, it's almost like a training ground, that time period there where you're alone. Because every single time you go through difficulty, you turn to Him. So when your friends do come, and you know, Allah does send good friends your way, then you're able to understand, hang on, before I rely on them, let me turn to Him. So definitely some interesting advice there. Jazakallah khair. Sister Ayan, what's your take on what the sister should do?
The thing is that look at it as an opportunity to cull out the good friends from the bad, because no matter what your friends' opinions are, what kind of walks of life you come from, if someone is truly a good friend, they will support you in what you're doing and they'll help you through your change, and they'll try to be understanding. But if it's their needs coming before your own, without them trying to understand what it is that you're going through, then you know that this is not a friend that's there for you, it's a friend that's there for themselves. So, you know, take it, you know, look at it as, you know, alhamdulillah, I know who my real friends are. And second of all, you know, life is a revolving door. You know, there are always things coming in and coming out. Yeah, and it's important to understand that, you know, as it might be, you know, a sad time, you might feel alone, but it's also an opportunity to go out and make some new friends. Good friends who are going to push you towards the things that you want to be better at.
Absolutely.
You know, so go to lectures, you know, introduce yourself to other sisters, you know, make friends, be a little bit more proactive. Don't feel sad about you've lost friends. I mean, it is sad, but don't wallow in that. You know,
Absolutely.
It's an opportunity to go in the direction that you need to go in.
I actually thought it was really interesting. I was listening to a talk about this, and it was from Ustad Nu'man Ali Khan again, and he was talking about this whole issue of feeling quite isolated, and he actually said something which was really interesting. He said, you'll see young people that are getting away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who do you think will invite them? Me? No. These kids, they don't come to the masjid. They don't come to any of the halakas. I have no way of reaching them. You have to go to them. You have to be an inspiration to them. And when I heard that, I thought, subhanAllah, that's such a positive way of looking at things. Don't see it that you're losing your friends. See it that you're in a different place and you want to bring them towards that place. And once you start to see things like that, everything becomes a lot more positive. There's no reason why you can't still be friends with those people. It just means you have to approach it in a slightly different way. And if you're going to cut yourself off, then these people potentially might not have access to whatever it is that inspired you to change. So I think it's about understanding that actually every single one of us has a responsibility, and you know, we all have the responsibility to you know, be an inspiration to somebody else, and either we're going to inspire them or we're going to turn them away. So that's a decision that we have to make within ourselves. Sister Zainab, what advice would you give to the sister?
That's actually a really good point. I was going to say, sometimes people can go through this phase where they basically ditch their old crowd. They kind of just, sometimes it can come across to those friends that, you know what, she thinks she's too good for us. Yeah. She doesn't want to know us anymore. I understand why that happens, and to a degree, depending on the types of friendships you have, sometimes that's actually necessary, but most of the time it isn't. That it's about, okay, I'm not going to, if that environment is not good for me, then I won't necessarily be around that environment, but it doesn't mean I won't be in contact with you anymore. That's the thing, now you're a dawah carrier now, you know, it's not like Islam doesn't apply to these people anymore. It's like you take it to anyone and everyone. There's no assumption of what a person is or whatever. So, and this is the thing, if you then are going to those other talks and things like that, you will naturally meet people and naturally make a new set of friends. And like I was saying before, make dua first, because those friends will come. Also, they will give you, you know, because you're doing it purely for His sake, so that it will come. But the other,
sorry, go ahead.
No, the other issue is Islamic friendships, and I mean proper Islamic friendships, not people who happen to look right, people who actually have, you know, actually have submitted themselves completely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those relationships are on another level. They're so amazing, because I've done both. I've experienced both. And it was funny, me and my friend were talking the other day. And this isn't just a youth thing. This is, no matter how old you are, the friendships is always an issue. She was talking about some of the friends that her mum has and how they will talk about each other behind each other's backs and things like that. And it's really sad. But I was thinking, subhanAllah, Islamic friendships are basically, they always put you before themselves. Right? Yeah, absolutely. And they always, you know, they always remind you of Allah, and they're always going to keep you strong.
Alhamdulillah. Great advice there. Very interesting indeed. Well, it's been an action-packed show, but unfortunately, we've come to the end of today's program. Before we go, this week on Women's AM, we're holding an exciting competition for you sisters. Up for grabs are some cosmetics by FX. To be in with a chance to win these goodies, all you have to do is answer the following question: which name of Allah means the all-loving? Is it A, Al-Majid, B, Al-Wadud, or C, Al-Latif? To enter, email your answer A, B or C to womensam@islamchannel.tv along with your name and address and what you most like about Women's AM. The deadline for entries is the 25th of January 2014 at 4 p.m. All applicants need to be over 18 and residing in the UK, and please note only one entry per person per household. A winner will be randomly selected from correct entries, and the winner's name will be announced on Monday's show. We're back, of course, tomorrow with our discussion on troubles in university, so do join us for that interesting topic. Jazakallah khair to all of the sisters on the panel, and of course our special guest today. Jazakallah khair for watching. Until tomorrow, remember us and all of the ummah in your du'as. We'll see you then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.